chamber to the people. Let the voices ring. Laws are made. Debates take the wing.
I know we are going to be reposed with responsibilities.
Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Watch the Senate and the House of Representatives, where decisions flow. The Parliament, the place to know. The Parliament, see power at play. The Parliament, your window into democracy at work, only on Global Television. Hello and welcome to your parliamentary program, The Parliament, which deliberates on legislative policies from the chambers of the National Assembly to the voices shaping Nigeria's democratic journey. Welcome once again. I am Anieti Patrick. Each week, we bring you the latest decisions, debates, and developments from the heart of the legislature, the bills shaping national policy, the motions addressing citizens' concerns, and the oversight actions holding governments accountable. On this episode, in a key step towards the 2026 national budget, the Senate and the House of Representatives has approved the 2026 to 2028 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper.
The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, who was represented by the Deputy Chief Whip, Senator Peter Nwaboyin, said budgetary assumption was often estimated based with the revenue generation to enable the government to fund its capital projects and pay worker salaries. He tasked the stakeholders to live up to their responsibilities for the robust economic development in the country.
It is my expectation, therefore, that the deliberation arising from this exercise will further deepen collaboration between the executive and the legislative arm of government, all geared towards promoting the national interests of our country, Nigeria.
Earlier, the chairman, Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Sani Musa, APC, Niger East, said the interactive meeting on the 2026 to 2028 MTEF and FSP was to propose revenue assumptions for the purpose of funding people's base budget.
Part of that solution that we saw last week was at the Federal Executive Council, where His Excellency the President himself approved and gave directive that all outstanding debts in terms of 2024-2025, the 30% should be cleared.
Those who attended the interactive meeting on the MTEF and FSP were the Minister of Finance, Coordinating Minister of Economy, Mr. Wale Odun, Minister of Budget and National Planning, Abubakar Atiku, the Minister of State Petroleum, Senator Lukoboro Henikin, Chairman, Nigeria Inland Revenue Service, Zak Adedeji, and others looked into the 2024 and 2025 budgets and why the two budgets are still running concurrently. The Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of Economy, Mr. Wale Odun, explained some economic policies of the government and the implementation based on how much is generated and the expenses.
His Excellency, Mr. President, having removed the major distortions in the economy, having stabilized it, the whole point is that there should be investment. And we are having investment across all sectors.
On the non-payment of local contractors, Mr. Wale Odun said the presidential directive has already been issued for the immediate payment of 30% to all local contractors.
The Koreas of this world, the Singapores of this world, they did it, the Chinas, by mobilizing their own savings so that when they produce, they don't consume everything.
The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Alhaji Abubakar Atiku, further explained how the budget is planned and its implementation and reason behind the rollover of 2024, 2025 to 2026.
That relationship is what is required to generate more investment in infrastructure, renewed hope infrastructure, which is affecting all parts of Nigeria and creating jobs. Equally, the increased spending on security by all the tiers of government is supposed to support domestic production, domestic job creation.
The chairman, Nigeria Inland Revenue Service, Jack Adedeji, proposed how much the agency will generate for the funding of 2026 budget, while responding on why the agency has signed a memorandum of understanding MOU with France. The meeting ended with the resolution by the chairman of the committee to set up a three-man committee to work with the Accountant General of the Federation for the quick payment of local contractors.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has formally received a major fiscal proposal from President Bola Tinubu transmitting an appropriation repeal and reenactment bill covering the 2024 and 2025 budget cycles, alongside deliberations on amendments to the Electoral Act and concerns over parliamentary decorum. In a letter read at plenary, President Tinubu forwarded the Appropriation Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2/2024, seeking National Assembly approval for a total expenditure of over 43 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal year. The proposed budget allocates more than 1.7 trillion naira for statutory transfers, over 8 trillion naira for debt servicing, about 11.2 trillion naira for recurrent non-debt expenditure, and over 22 trillion naira for capital projects and development fund contributions. According to the president, the bill is designed to end the practice of running multiple budgets concurrently while strengthening fiscal discipline, accountability, and capital project performance.
This bill is to bring an end to the practice of running multiple budgets concurrently, while at the same time ensuring reasonable, indeed unprecedentedly high capital performance rates.
The bill also tightens spending controls, mandating that funds be released strictly for approved purposes, requiring National Assembly approval for vehement and enforcing periodic reporting on revenues and releases by government agencies. Lawmakers were urged to consider the bill expeditiously as it passed second reading and was transmitted to the Committee on Appropriation. Meanwhile, the House conducted a first reading of a supplementary bill seeking to amend the Electoral Act. Lawmakers agreed to amend the long title, clarifying that the proposal is an amendment rather than a repeal and reenactment of the existing Electoral Act. Proceedings were briefly interrupted as the presiding officer cautioned members of poor decorum on the floor of the House, warning against standing in the aisles, speaking out of turn, and disrespecting parliamentary ethics.
The original act is saying subsection 2 is given you supported with an affidavit not less than 90 days. And then the amendment is giving you a window, is saying within, I think it's too tight.
Approve clause 62 as amended, approve clause 64 and 65 as amended, approve clause 71, 73 as amended, approve clause 74 as amended, and adjourn consideration to the next plenary.
The House thereafter adopted several clauses of the Electoral Act amendment, deferred others for further consideration, and resolved to continue deliberations at the next plenary. In a major diplomatic move, the Senate has confirmed the nominations of Lateef Are, Aminu Dahatu, and Emmanuel Oke as non-career ambassadors. Their confirmation followed the presentation of a report by the chairman, Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs, Sani Bello.
According to the senator, the nominees who hailed from Ogun, Jigawa, and Oyo states respectively met all the requirements during their screening.
The committee therefore recommends as follows. 1. That the Senate do confirm the nomination of Lateef Kayode Kolawole Are as appointment as a non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. 2. That the Senate do confirm the nomination of Aminu Muhammad Dalhatu for appointment as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And finally, that the Senate do confirm the nomination of Emmanuel Ayodele Oke, CFR, for appointment as non-career ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Are, Dalhatu, and Oke were the first three nominees forwarded to the Senate by President Bola Tinubu for confirmation. 65 other nominees have been screened by the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and await confirmation. In a related development, the Senate has also confirmed Dr. Chukwuemeka Chukwu as the resident electoral commissioner for Abia State in the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC.
Competence and integrity as guided by the Constitution, and found him suitable for reappointment as resident electoral commissioner.
The nomination of Dr. Chukwuemeka J. Chukwu, representing Abia State, is hereby confirmed as resident electoral commissioner, INEC, in the Independent National Electoral Commission.
The Red Chamber also confirmed Aisha Mahmoud Kantibelo and Dr. Anma Shaun Fawat Olayinka as commissioners of the National Electricity Regulatory Commission, NEC.
In the same vein, as part of effort to strengthen Nigeria's foreign policy, the Senate has confirmed all 64 nominees for career and non-career ambassadorial positions. This followed the adoption of a report by the Committee on Foreign Affairs, chaired by Senator Sani Bello.
The confirmation was, however, not without tension, as Senator Sabi Yau objected to the non-inclusion of any nominee for Zamfara State in the ambassadorial list and called on the president to address the abnormality.
The ambassadorial nominees, and to my dismay, I couldn't find Zamfara State on the list. None, both career and non-career. So, I wonder, I wouldn't say that, I believe it must be an oversight by some officials that will have used the hands and eyes of Mr. President.
Senator Sabi Yau, Zamfara North. President of the Senate, Goza Kwabi, acknowledged the concern, noting the list isn't exhaustive. He assured lawmakers he will raise it with President Tinubu and confirmed more nominations are coming, ensuring Zamfara's inclusion. This confirmation strengthens Nigeria's diplomatic corps amid ongoing global engagements.
The list of ambassadorial nominees is not exhaustive. In other words, it has not been exhausted. The number of countries are so many, and some of them are career ambassadors. The non-career ambassadors are not even as many as they ought to be. So I believe that another list will be coming, and Zamfara State cannot be left out and will not be left out, I assure you.
President Bola Tinubu had, on December 4th, sent a request for 34 career and 31 non-career ambassadorial nominees to the Senate for confirmation.
The House of Representatives has set up a special panel to investigate alleged discrepancies in Nigeria's gazetted tax laws, even as political realignments continued in the National Assembly, with 4 lawmakers from Rivers State defecting to the ruling party. The House of Representatives has constituted a 7-member committee to probe claims that the tax laws published in the official government gazette do not reflect what was passed by the National Assembly. Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, announced the composition of the committee during plenary on Thursday. The panel is chaired by Mukhtar Betara, with Idris Wase, James Faleke, Sada Soli, Iduma Igariwe, Frederick Agbedi and Babajimi Benson as members.
I'm happy to announce to you that the following members have been appointed to the committee. They have 1 week within which to report to this honorable House their findings and their investigation. Thank you.
The investigation follows a claim by Abdul Samad Dasuki, a lawmaker from Sokoto State, who alleged that the gazetted tax laws available to Nigerians differ from the versions approved by Parliament.
We passed the tax laws on this floor, and Mr. Speaker, I took my time in the last 3 days to look at the gazetted pass copy, the vote and proceedings of the House of Representatives, and also went an extra mile to look at the vote and proceedings of the Senate of what was harmonized. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, what I passed on this floor is not what is gazetted.
Meanwhile, 4 lawmakers from Rivers State have defected to the All Progressives Congress (APC). Umezeruke Manuchi moved from the Labour Party to the APC, while Boniface Emeregwa Awaji Inombek Abiante and Boma Goodhead defected from the People's Democratic Party. Speaker Tajuddin Abbas read the letters of defection on the floor of the House, with the lawmakers citing leadership crisis within the PDP as the reason for their decision.
I write to notify the House of Representatives that I have resigned my membership of the Labour Party to All Progressive Congress APC. Consequent upon the above, I hereby decamp from the PDP to formally join the All Progressive Congress APC with immediate effect.
The defections add to a growing wave of lawmakers crossing over to the ruling party, particularly from Rivers State, following the recent defection of Governor Similari Fubara and several members of the State House of Assembly. In a related development, President Bola Tinubu has written to the House seeking permission to address a joint session of the National Assembly at noon on Friday, December 19th, for the formal presentation of the 2026 national budget. President Bola Tinubu presents 54 trillion naira 2026 appropriation bill before the joint session of the National Assembly during Friday's sitting. Last week, Tinubu transmitted the 2026 to 2028 medium-term expenditure framework, MTF, and fiscal strategy paper to the National Assembly.
Under the proposal, defense and security will receive the lion's share ahead of infrastructure, education, and health, reaffirming a pattern established in the 2024 and 2025 budget cycles, where security consistently attracted the highest sectoral funding amid persistent threat from terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping.
National security remains the foundation of development. The 2026 budget strengthens support for modernization of armed forces, intelligence-driven pricing and joint operations, border security, and technology-enabled surveillance and community-based peace building and conflict prevention.
Beyond security, the 2026 budget also proposes 3.56 trillion naira for infrastructure, 3.52 trillion naira for education, and
without security, investment will not thrive. Without education and healthy citizens, productivity will not rise. Without infrastructure, job and enterprises will not scale. This budget is therefore designed to provide a single coherent program of national renewal, a national security and peace building.
On his part, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, noted that the 2026 appropriation bill is more than the compilation of figures.
The 2026 appropriation bill you are about to present before us is therefore far more than a compilation of figures. It is, for us, a statement of intent, a reflection of priorities, a record of difficult choices, and a roadmap for the next phase of Nigeria's national renewal.
Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, said while the economy has shown signs of recovery and stability in 2025, volatility in global oil markets and optimistic fiscal assumptions had exposed the risks of over-reliance on crude oil revenues, making realism and discipline imperative in the 2026 budget framework.
If 2025 was a year of adjustment and learning, 2026 must be a year of fulfillment. Growth must increasingly translate into jobs, higher incomes, and expanded opportunities.
As earlier, the Federal Executive Council had approved the 2026 budget framework at an emergency meeting presided over for the first time by Vice President Kashim Shettima.
Meanwhile, at Thursday plenary, the House of Representatives has concluded deliberations on proposed amendments to the Electoral Act ahead of the 2027 general elections. Lawmakers resumed consideration of the report of the House Committee on Electoral Matters on a bill seeking to amend the 2022 Electoral Act. with members debating the provisions clause by clause, proposing amendments or repeals where necessary. Several clauses generated intense debate on the floor of the House. The House resumed consideration of the report of its Committee on Electoral Matters on a bill to amend the 2022 Electoral Act, with lawmakers scrutinizing each provision and proposing amendments or repeals where necessary. Several clauses triggered intense debate on the floor of the House. A major resolution centered on Section 51, Subsection 2 of the Act, which deals with overvoting, while the committee had proposed the outright cancellation of votes in polling units where overvoting occurs. Lawmakers rejected the recommendation. Instead, the House resolved that where overvoting is established, the presiding officer shall deduct the excess votes proportionately from the votes of all participating political parties. The House also agreed that any presiding officer found to be involved in overvoting will be liable to prosecution.
The officers at that polling unit where this overvoting takes place should be prosecuted.
Proportionately, he would deduct the vote proportionately across the political parties.
If there is overvoting, cancel that unit and go back to election.
At the committee level, there was no merit to it at the committee level. Likewise, many other bills too.
Lawmakers also engaged in extensive deliberations on provisions aimed at curbing the practice of aspirants submitting their names to more than one political party for elections, a move seen as critical to strengthening internal party discipline and electoral integrity.
Members that are of dual political parties should not be allowed to vote. So I think the amendment you make, I think, is more proper.
Can a member exercise his right of association in this multiple form, or should he accept one and stay with that? That's the question.
Speaking after plenary, the chairman of the House Committee on Electoral Matters, Adebayo Balogun, described Nigeria's Electoral Act as one of the most progressive electoral laws in the country's history. He said the proposed amendments are intended to consolidate the gains of the existing law, address identified loopholes, and improve implementation, while preserving the overall stability of the electoral framework.
Okay, not everyone that passed through secondary made it to the report.
Not everyone made it
because during public hearing and all that, some were dropped.
Yes.
With the House concluding its work on the amendments, attention now shifts to the remaining legislative process as lawmakers insist the reforms will help deliver a more credible, transparent, and accountable electoral process ahead of the 2027 polls. Let's take a breather here, and on the flip side, we'll look at more unfolding of legislative proceedings before its adjournment. The House of Representatives has issued an ultimatum to the Central Bank of Nigeria to conclude an ongoing reconciliation with the Ministry of Finance and Fiscal Responsibility Commission over alleged unremitted revenues running into trillions of naira. The directive came from the House Committee on Public Accounts after the Central Bank of Nigeria requested additional time to appear before the committee following a resolution summoning the Apex Bank's governor. Chairman of the committee, Bamidele Salam, recalled that the investigation was initiated by a joint sitting of the committees on public accounts and public assets over alleged violations of the Constitution and the Fiscal Responsibility Act. According to the committee, reports from the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, and a special audit allegedly showed that the CBN failed to remit about 5.2 trillion naira in operating surplus between 2015 and 2022. Other alleged infractions include outstanding remittances following the transition to the Treasury single account, discrepancies uncovered during the migration of the federal balances, and unpaid value-added tax on remittance transactions.
Based on the resolution of the House that was passed last week, we are supposed to make our findings and our decisions available for plenary before the end of January of 2026.
The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edu, acknowledged that reconciliation between fiscal and monetary authorities is continuous, but stressed the need for clarity, transparency, and a defined timeline.
Turnaround, I would say, of the Nigerian economy, including the metrics that came out yesterday showing lower, even further lowering of inflation, are part of this, what I would call general interaction, consultation, and working together. So part of that is our attempt to sit together to reconcile what actually, under the law, under the Fiscal Responsibility Act, is actually owed, what is owed, and to whom is it owed.
Lawmakers, however, urge caution, emphasizing the need to balance accountability with fair hearing.
I want to implore my colleague through the chairman to allow them, little time to come up with the documents that they said they are compiling. I think these are documents that should ordinarily be there, at their fingertip. They just recall it and submit to us.
The Fiscal Responsibility Commission also welcomed the reconciliation process, admitting challenges in enforcing compliance, but noting that recent legal amendments have strengthened its mandate. The committee has now fixed January 19, 2026 for the submission of reconciliation reports and January 26 for the personal appearance of the CBN governor. Findings from the final hearing will be presented to the House at plenary. Also, the House of Representatives has commenced an investigation into the growing menace of drug abuse in Nigeria, as lawmakers warn that the crisis now poses a serious threat to national stability and public health. The probe is being carried out by an ad hoc committee on drug trafficking, alcohol and tobacco abuse, set up to expose systemic failures and recommend urgent corrective measures. Chairman of the committee, Olutimei Adelegbe, said the investigation would focus on the widespread abuse of cannabis, tramadol, codeine-based cough syrups, as well as harmful alcoholic mixtures and tobacco products.
Enactment of National Alcohol Act, enforcement of smoke-free spaces, digital tracking of pharmaceutical products, enforcement of drug prescription law.
He warned that weak enforcement at ports and borders has allowed fake drugs and unregistered substances to flood the market, leaving entire communities devastated by addiction, crime, and preventable deaths.
Business model can be allowed to thrive at the expense of Nigerian lives. No profit margin can justify the destruction of our youth.
The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime also raised fresh concerns, describing drug use in Nigeria as alarming and far above the global average.
Drug trafficking is not merely a law enforcement issue. It is not only about NDLA or NAFDAC or what have you. It's an economic crime.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency pledged its support for the investigation, calling for stronger legislation, improved regulation, enhanced treatment systems, and increased operational resources to curb drug abuse and trafficking nationwide.
Increased use of non-conventional routes, including courier services, luggage concealment, and digital ordering systems. Growing involvement of transnational criminal networks exploiting regional instability and porous borders. Emergence of clandestine methamphetamine laboratories, particularly in the fringe urban and rural settlements.
Lawmakers say recommendations from the investigation will guide reforms aimed at protecting public health, saving lives, and strengthening Nigeria's fight against illicit drugs. And that's the much we can take on this edition of the program. See you next week on the Parliament, on Global Television, on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. To stay connected, kindly follow us across all our social media platforms in using at Global TV NG. Thank you to my production team. Until I come your way the next time, I am Anieti Patrick. Bye for now.